Welcome to Dog Training Bytes. The show where canine professionals share their key takeaways, big aha moments, and hardest lessons learned from working with dogs. I'm Madison, certified dog trainer and behavior consultant, and dogs are my life. Every day I get to coach guardians and other trainers into a deeper understanding of canine behavior. But let's face it, sometimes dog training really bites. And that's okay, because when it does, we learn a lot. This podcast is all about sharing the lessons learned from experience, because the stories of when it got tough or when we made a mistake, that's when we learn the lessons worth learning. And it's time we share those with the world. I'll be talking to dog trainers and other pet professionals about times that working with dogs, well, bit. Not literally. Maybe literally. What's most important here on this show, what did they walk away with? What did they learn? How did it shape their approach today? Welcome to Dog Training Bytes, the show where pet professionals share personal lessons that you won't find in any textbook. Today's guest is Daphne Mendoza-Tervanis, a dog behavior specialist and founder of A Dog Trainer Life. Daphne's journey into dog training is as inspiring as it is powerful. She immigrated to the US from Mexico at age 10 and launched her own dog walking business in high school to pay her way through college. Since then, she's worked at various dog training facilities, graduated from the FetchFind Academy, and built a thriving training business of her own. She now blends her behavior expertise with her passion for dog sports to help both pets and their people thrive. Hi, Daphne.
Hey, Madison.
I am so excited to chat with you today, and it was just immediate for us. I think we have a lot in common, and I think if locked together in a room, we would probably never run out of things to talk about.
Oh, no. You'd be a person I would take to an escape room for sure.
Yeah. Oh, I love escape rooms. Oh my gosh.
Best. Puzzles. Ever since I was little, anything that has to do with puzzles, I'm in.
I am also a puzzle person. I'm going to go totally off script now. What's your favorite puzzle video game?
Oh my God, that is a great question. So Resident Evil 4, PlayStation 2, I think it was. They just made a remake for the PS5 that me and my husband are replaying through now. But the puzzles in that game were just amazing. And it was something that even him and I bonded over when we first started dating. And so then we were like, what's your favorite Terry game? We both did the same because of the puzzles. So
amazing. Yes. Amazing. Are you a classic puzzle person, actually a jigsaw puzzle, or no, you want to solve a problem?
You know what? A little bit of both. My dad, when I still lived in Mexico, he would buy me 400, 700 piece puzzles when I was 7 years old. And I would be staying in my room, put them all up. Then we would Mod Podge them. And I had a little gallery in my room of all the ones that I had done. My mom just got me this really cool one that's a bunch of dogs. And now that we moved, I finally have space to build it. So it's one of my to-do lists that once we stop all the stuff here at home, I'm going to start my puzzle because I want to put it here in my office somewhere too.
Yes. I have a puzzle I should send you that I've already completed. It's an elephant, but the pieces are also animals.
Oh, yeah.
Different animals. It's very cool. It was very cool. So I'll have to send that one along. I like to pass puzzles along once I've solved them.
I love that people are doing that. I feel like that's something that people started really gravitating towards in the pandemic because that's all you could do. Me and my husband built Winterfell. I don't know if you're familiar with Game of Thrones, but we built a whole 3D model of Winterfell, and we had nowhere to put it because we lived in a studio apartment. So one of the most gratifying but also painful moments was okay, let's take down our castle that took our whole quarantine to do.
You're sitting on your throne as we speak.
We are.
I noticed that right away. I'm actually watching the series for the first time right now with my husband. And I've read all the books, but it's been years. It was 2015 or 2016 when I read them. So yeah, we are season 5-ish. So we're in the thick of it, as they say.
Yeah. Since you read the books, even if it was a long time ago, I feel you have an idea of what's going on. I had to rewatch the first and second season 2 or 3 times to be okay, who's who? Because there was just so many characters that I just couldn't keep up.
It's been, there's a lot of characters, a lot of plot lines, but it's been interesting to realize what pieces of it I held on to and what pieces I forgot, because I forgot a lot. A lot. I'm oh my gosh, so much happened. So I don't actually know that I know the answer to my first question for you, because when I see you on social media, there are lots of dogs around. But if you could tell me and the dog people out there about your own personal dog or dogs.
So I grew up with a Schnauzer. That guy was my little sidekick. So
Your ride or die.
my ride or die, my beer-headed fan. I loved him so much, and he basically just knew how to sit and paw. It was like the only things that he knew. But he could basically like talk. Like if he was a human, like he was insane. After that, I had a Malamute that was not what I expected, not what I wanted at all. But it's like we called him the goodest bad boy because it's exactly who he. And now
that checks out.
Yeah, I wanted a dog that I was gonna take through training school because I was like, I'm gonna do all these cool things with it. And he like passed training school with me, but definitely when I was like, let's do dog sports, he was like, hell no. It was a big pivot, but I feel like now I understand Northern breeds so much more because of him. And now I have 3 dogs that are very much my speed. So I have a cattle dog mix named Riot. She's cattle dog, pit bull, and lab. And the most perfect, beautiful lady in the entire universe. She's my demo dog now. She's about 4 years old. I have we're not really sure what he is yet, but one of his brothers said it was like a German Shepherd cattle dog mix, but he's tiny. He's 30 pounds. Oh. So he's my behavioral case. His name is Caos, which is chaos in Spanish. Okay. And I also have a Belgian Malinois who's about to turn 2. So very high strong house.
Yeah, there's a lot, right? There's a lot of drive, there's a lot of energy, there's a lot of different personalities mixed in there.
Yeah, but it's a good mesh. And I've learned how to structure like my day-to-day so that everybody can stay fulfilled. Decompression is a big one in my household. And so the times that everybody's out, which just works heavily on decompression, it's something that my Malamute like really drilled on me. If there's something you remember from passing, is that you need to chill the fuck out.
You need to chill. Yeah. You're going to learn today.
Yeah, exactly.
How are they doing with the move?
Surprisingly, not an issue at all. So I think that my whole thing about the way that I train is very, I call it lifestyle based, where it's not, you don't really even know that I'm training. It is something that happens throughout my day. To me, training is conversations. And the way that I structure my day-to-day is very consistent and like safe for my dogs. And so we just kept literally the same routine that we did throughout the whole moving process. And they're in their crates now, hanging out. They have their own space to be in now. And I was able to use all the decompression that I've taught my dogs for the move so that they just were like, hey, there's crazy shit happening, but I know what's expected to me. And that is something has been consistent and that feels safe and comfortable. And so they literally just blended right in.
They have lots of, I call them anchors, things that dogs can anchor into as a point of consistency, even when other things are changing. And it can actually help their brains not go into that state of hypervigilance where they're taking in so much new information that they become agitated. If they have those anchors, that's far less likely to happen, or at least become all consuming in ways that I've at least seen it in times of change. But that's with typically more sensitive dogs, I would say.
Yeah, I love that term, actually, because I feel like it encompasses exactly what it is. It's just the dog understands what their role is in that environment, and they feel so confident in that role that then they're trusting you with everything else. They're like, hey, okay, you gave me my task. I trust you that you literally, like, our house could explode. And I'm okay.
And we have lots of anchors. We ourselves are an anchor for our dog, and being consistent in the way that we interact with them. Their routine can be an anchor. Their kennel or their bed could be an anchor. I have a client who's a travel nurse, and we use a sports cone that like breaks down. That way it's easy for her to travel. And we train around this cone. We just train around this cone all the time. And it's this point of consistency. I don't really know this place, but I know that cone. And no matter what, it comes with them. And it can be a lot simpler than you think to provide those to your dog.
Dude, seriously, and it's funny that you say that because, like, so my cattle dog shepherd mix, he is very quirky. Like, I never really expected to get him around the time that I did. I was certainly not looking to add another dog, but he was definitely not a dog that could go into a pet home. And for us, same, it was a cone. I used the cone because he loves going around the cone. I use a Cato board. And sometimes I would even use maybe another thing, but the Cato board and the cone were always a similar picture. And so I tell people, I'm like, start with the same, your anchors out there. And then as your dog starts feeling more confident with this, then I want you to find landmarks throughout your walk. Like, hey, there's a stump on this block that I can make sure that I'm asking my dog to place or play around. So that if at any point during your walk you get stuck or something happens, you have those landmarks that you both feel comfortable and safe in.
Yeah. I think that's really important too with like urban cases, to have those little pit stops that can be like a little decompression stop especially when, okay, this is a gauntlet. Even in neighborhood, right? All right, this is the doodle block, right? I've got so many backyard dogs along here. I've got this, but I know that once I get past there, I'm going to get a break. And building those in at the end of those difficult moments, as they start to expect that, it can make it easier for them to move through the challenging places.
Yeah, exactly. I think that is something that I wish more people saw, because I think people have this idea of what a walk should be and what a walk actually should be. And so too many times I just think, I just want to walk. I'm like, why? There's just so many other things that you can do with your dog during a walk. Like my dog Kyle's, his biggest trigger is like the trail of kids, the like little train of kids that'll hold hands. And so now as soon as he sees it, he loves fire hydrants. So he'll either jump on them or he'll go and put his paws on it. So you see him actually starting to seek this if he starts to get too overwhelmed. And I think that as like dog mentors, our job is to provide our dogs with certain pieces of safety throughout the areas that we're going to be putting them in, and not just being like, you just have to handle it and then get upset when they can't.
Yeah. It takes training your eyes to look for the opportunities. But once you know what to look for and where to insert it, it becomes second nature as a part of just the way you move through life with your dog. It's just like looking for these, anchors and like pit stops for them.
Yeah, it's fun. I always
It is fun.
Like, it ends up being fulfilling for your dog. They're like, oh, I get to climb this tree stump. Oh, I get to go under this little table or whatever. I'm like, there's just so many things that you can do, and it doesn't just have to be obedience. It could be something as little as, look, this is where we go and spin in circles or do our rollover. So it just has to be behaviors that your dog likes and they associate with things that just happen all the time. So that I always call them like solution versus conflict, right? I'm like, you have to offer your dog solutions to their problems, because if not, then either you're just nagging them or you're just saying, hey, no, then you just can't do it, which is creating frustration. So like, you need to come with a handful of solutions for your dog to be like, you know what? Yes, that feels safe and better.
And it's going to be different for every dog. They're going to be able to tell you and show you what is easy for them to do instead of being a nervous wreck in that moment. And the answer to some of those solutions might be, no, I actually can't do that right now. But if you try different things, you can get there.
Yeah. And listening to them, like you said.
Which involves, again, training your eyes to know what you're looking for.
Yeah.
Because unfortunately, dogs can't be like, excuse me, I'm really stressed. Why are those tiny humans all attached?
Seriously. Yeah. I think that one of the first things I cover with everybody is just, hey, let's get to know your dog. I like for my first session, I always tell my clients, listen, like, when you start a video game and you get like those first 10-15 minutes that you're just learning how to play the controllers, this is what this session is going to be like. It's showing you what to look for. It's showing you how to move around with your dog. And I need you to practice these controllers so that then we can go on actual like quests together.
Yes. Great analogy. One that definitely lands with me.
Thank you. Yeah, I always tell people, I always make sure I'm like, are you a gamer?
I know. I tend to keep some sports analogies in my back pocket just in case they're like, no, why? And I'm like, okay, do you play an instrument? What are you into? Let me see what I can connect to you on. So I am excited to hear, Daphne, the story that you brought for us today.
So I guess I want to shed a little bit of light, especially because right now we are seeing so much hate with immigrants and stuff. And I think that for me, one of the ways to resolve conflict is through understanding, right? And listening to other people's story to try to aim to understand them, because then that will help us empathize with the things that they're going through. And unfortunately, I think as a society, systematically, the whole concept of immigration has been something that has been demonized. And I just want to show people that I was a person that came here when I was like 10 years old, as you mentioned in the beginning. And I never really understood what being an immigrant meant until about the time that I went to college. Around my junior year, when everybody was like starting to sign up for FAFSA and stuff, I remember like I didn't even know what FAFSA was, right? And so I walked to my English class and they were like, oh, today we're filling out, we're learning how to fill out FAFSA. And I sat down and I'm like, hey, how do I do this? And when it said Social Security, I was like, oh, I don't have one. How does this work? And they're like, the teacher didn't even know what to do with me. She was like, I guess you can just go sit at the front and draw or something. And I was just, oh, okay.
Wow.
And then going through to senior year, my friends were super excited to apply for colleges. Here in Chicago, I really wanted to go to DePaul University. And I remember when I got my acceptance letter, I was super excited. I went to go talk to my mom about it. I was like, Mom, I got in. I got like a $5,000 scholarship, which for that university, that's like really nothing, but I was excited about it. And my mom had to sit me down and be like, you have to understand that this is just not doable for us. Like, this is in no ways is really going to be in the cards for you. And that was something that was kind of one of the big falls, as I call them, throughout my life, that it just knocked me off my feet with reality. And for a week or two, I was like, man, screw it. I'm going to do badly at school. Who even cares? Like, why should I get good grades? Why should I? And I couldn't do it. Like after 3 days, I was just like, I can't do this.
That's not me.
Yeah. And so that moment, I think, defined a lot of doors that were going to be slammed in my face for a long time, even after that, that made me pivot every single time. And I think that I've always had to learn how to pivot and how to trust in myself and say, hey, like I'm going to have to accomplish this myself. Around that time, I ended up going to a local community college, and I got granted a short scholarship from this program that was called ROTC, which is kind of like a military program.
Yeah.
And the colonel there knew that I was undocumented. And so he was like, hey, I can probably give you this scholarship for 2-3 years. We'll see. So you're great at what you do. I want to support you. And like a year and a half into that program, he was like, hey, they're cutting funding. I'm not going to be able to continue to do this. And I was almost achieving my minor at the time. And I was like, you know what? Let me pay for one semester by myself. So I started dog walking because I had worked with a lot of dogs back in Mexico. Both of my grandfathers inspired me to work with animals in different ways. And so it's like, it's something I can't do. I couldn't even get a real job because I didn't have a social and stuff. So it was like, let me start dog walking. And through that experience, I happened to just only be able to work with dogs who had some kind of behavioral challenge. And that grew and grew into me finding that this was actually my passion, me saying, you know what, now let me start dog sitting. Okay, a couple of years later, they had something called the DACA program, which meant it's a deferred action program, which grants certain undocumented people with a social security to work. So I was able to get something like that, and I was able to start working at daycares. I attended a dog training school, and now I'm excited to be able to go to places like career days that are strictly in like Latino neighborhoods and talk to these kids and be like, hey, this is possible. It doesn't necessarily have to be dog training, but if right now you can't go to college, or right now that's just not something that you see yourself doing, there are other avenues. To me, I think that by us understanding that success is not going to look the same for every person, and although systematically they tell us like you're not going to be successful unless you meet this criteria, but that's a load of bullshit, you know?
Yep.
And even though it took me a lot of hard work, a lot of days I definitely broke down and was like, why do I have to work 10 times as hard as anyone to get anything? I don't regret it, because ultimately I did it all for myself. And at the beginning, my mom was like, I can't believe you're not going to go to school and you're just going to be a dog trainer. I'm like, it's all I can. For me, I always try to be the best at whatever it is that I put myself into. And so I continue to learn, I continue to grow within this field, and it's something that it just drives me every single day.
Yeah. So I would love to hear more about, you said that you go into schools and speak. And to me, I just was instantly struck of, this is Daphne creating for the little Daphnes what wasn't there, what like nobody could give to you, when there was something that could have been given to you at that time. You could have been provided more than you can sit up here and color and not be involved. So I would just love to hear more about just, I guess, that full circle, but also what is the message that you are delivering? Like, what, if you could get on a megaphone and let all the little Daphnes out there hear it, what would be that message?
What I think is figure out what you like to do and what you love and what you have a passion to learn more about. It doesn't even have to be something that you're good at. This is something that you're like, hey, I want to learn about this thing, and invest in that. Always invest in yourself. Like, that is something that, you know, although my mom had her doubts at the beginning of me choosing this career, she never stopped believing in me. And she was just always, hey, whatever it is that you want to do, I know that you're going to be able to accomplish it, because that's just simply the person that you are. And even when I go to schools, I tell people, I'm like, you don't have to like dog training. I mean, if you like video editing, hey, let me just learn how to do that. Let me go on YouTube and find a bunch of videos on the information about the subject. Hey, let me eventually open up an LLC where I can, if you would like to do nails, you can do nails and go to people's houses, right? But it's just never forget believing in yourself, and never stop or think about not investing in yourself, because you are the most important thing to you. And the way that I started going into this career days, funny enough, my high school soccer coach became a principal at one of the local schools, and I worked with his dog a long time ago, and he was like, hey, I think that this would be something that's really cool that we can offer for you to come into a career day, because we always get the lawyers, the firefighters, the police officers, and this would just be something different. And a lot of times the first reaction that I get from most kids is anywhere like, a dog trainer, that's a job? And I'm like, yeah, like there's people that walk dogs, there's people that dogs, there's people that, you know, like Louise, that do stuff with the movies with dogs. That's the thing, is it's such a big field that it's not just veterinary care or zookeeper. So I feel like a lot of youth thinks that's the only avenues that you can go to.
That's where I lost my drive to work with animals. Was originally in my head, I want to work with animals. Okay, I'm going to be a vet. I don't actually want to be a vet, so I guess I can't work with animals. And that was where I left that for my entire life because I couldn't see beyond that.
Yeah, because it's what's shown to us as those are the only avenues. And I have been so lucky to have met so many different people in the industry that whether we do the same thing or not, we all have our own kind of rhythm to it, which I think is what I love about this industry is that it promotes creativity. It promotes, obviously, there's a lot of polarizing things out there, right? But when you look beneath surface level stuff, it's a community that really likes collaboration and communication. Once you get past all the noise, you realize that we all just have the same goal of helping animals. And that is what binds us together. And not just that, but helping people that come with those animals. That is also the thing that people don't see as attached to the pet industry. And I've worked with kids as young as 2 to 3 years old, all the way up to about 16, 17. Okay. And what makes me happy is that every time that they come into the classroom, whether it's a 2-year-old or a 17-year-old, or they come in and they see my dog Riot and they just smile. And they're just like, oh my God, it's a dog here. I'm like, animals bring something out of people. And to me, it's so important that people understand that animals are part of community, because for us to learn how to live among them and understand them and empathize with them is how we continue to create a better world, you know? Mm-hmm. And so that is always kind of my message is like, even if you don't want to be a dog trainer, for the next 45 minutes, I'm going to teach you how dogs see the world. And everybody comes out of there telling me like, I never saw that perspective. I've gotten messages from students after the fact that are like, I actually went home and trained my dog to do this, and that they love it, you know? And I found that in a lot of these spaces, like sometimes as far as people that work with animals, I was the only Black or brown person that was in the room. We had a couple of them where we had people from the aquarium come, which was great, but a lot of the tales that they told the kids were like, oh, a lot of them were white people that were like, oh yeah, my family had like acres of land in here and I just worked with horses, and then that ended up being me. I was able to go to college and all that stuff, and I'm like, that's great, but that is just not the lives that these people are living. And so
that path is not available to everyone.
Mm-hmm. And I would just see kids like just not pay attention or start to just, this is not for me. So it's almost like it's unattainable. So why should I care? How I always open up is I'm like, hey, I was undocumented and this is what I had to do to survive. And I loved it. And this is the kind of the path that I had to build for myself. And now I'm here as a 33-year-old with my own business and my own schedule and doing something that I love. And at the end of it, again, even if it's not dog training, they're like, hey, I can't go out and just do this myself.
Yeah. Giving them that like validation of feeling like they can create whatever it is that is theirs to create in the world.
Yeah.
And it sounds like even all the way back to high school, to that first fall of after your couple of days of feeling what you needed to feel about that, right? Like we're allowed to have our moments. It sounds like what pulled you out of that and what drove you for a long time and what you are like really trying to impart on these children is curiosity and how far that will get you. And you don't have to be good at it. You just have to be willing to learn. I've been like thinking about that lately of just how unwilling people seem to be. Adults seem to be bad at something. I'm like, okay, but you have to start. I think I'm going to pick up a musical instrument and literally pick up from scratch, never touched it. So we're going to see how that goes because I'm like ready to be publicly bad at something to show people that this is part of it. The way that my clients say to me, or when they're just like so impressed that I threw a piece of kibble and it landed right where I want it to land. I'm like, do you realize that I fling treats for a living? And when they're so impressed by my leash skills and my mechanics, and they say, you make it look so easy and so graceful. And I'm like, that's because I've done it hundreds and thousands and hundreds of thousands of times. I promise I looked way worse than you do when I started. They didn't let me have a dog on the end of the leash for 30 days. I did leash drills with an empty leash for 30 days. Like, you have to be willing to be not great at something, but be curious and be willing to be educated and be willing to be bad, but then be a little bit less bad the next time and learn and grow through the process.
Yeah, and have the patience for it. That's another thing. I just don't think, again, our system does not promote curiosity, right? And I don't think it promotes critical thinking either. And uncomfortable and willing to be vulnerable. Like, that is just not something that is promoted. My own husband, so we met 2 weeks before quarantine. We went on 2 dates and then we're like, oh shit, we have to quarantine with each other. And then I always joke that I'm like, and then he never left. Like, he was quarantined.
And here we are.
But he's been seeing how passionate you were about the things that you do that encouraged him to leave his like corporate job and venture out and be a physical therapist. You love helping people and you love going through your job. And even though it's something that sometimes it's hard and sometimes it breaks you, that it's just something that you're still happy to wake up to do every day.
Yeah. How do you feel that experience, either some of the specifics or even just collectively, impacts the way that you both kind of work with dogs and then also train people to work with their dogs?
I think that it gives me a different perspective that I think just wasn't out in the dog industry in my area, right? As we both know, dog training is becoming very elitist, right? Like only people that can afford certain type of services, and they're also going to get like foundations and exercises that kind of cater to the lifestyle of this certain class of people. And so I think because when I was doing training school, I was working at a daycare, I was going to training school, and I was boarding dogs at the time. And sometimes I'd have something up to 13 dogs in my studio apartment. I worked with one of my first dog training jobs. I was with this company that's primarily white women. And when they would hear about all the things that I had to do just to kind of, meet my needs or whatever, they're like, oh my God, I don't know how you have all this energy to like watch all these dogs, like walk all these dogs, and all this stuff. And I'm like, it's necessity.
Right. I don't have a choice.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, it's either that or I don't eat. And so I think that was a perspective that it gives me to have people that come see me and are like, hey, I work 12 hours. Like I can't do this, or I can't put my dog in this situation, or I just see the burnout that these dogs are causing it. And they're like, I can't just wait till my neighbor leaves and are 30 feet away from the building before I bring out my dog. And so I think that just living in the routine that I do and having like the lifestyle that I've had to have, it just gives me a different perspective on how people live with their dogs. You, Denise, and Jerry were having a very interesting conversation yesterday about dogs in some kind of in a lens being seen as like prisoners. And I think that with the way that Americans see living with dogs, like I can see that, right? Because it's very much a hierarchy versus, and maybe it's my opinion is different because I came from Mexico, and I know that Denise made a comment about dogs in Mexico, but dogs live within community in Mexico. It's just like they eat what you eat. They don't wear leashes. They're just out doing their jobs.
Yeah.
And so I think that coming from the perspective, no, like to me, animals are community. To me, and they're not just like below me that I'm just like, I got you to serve me this purpose. It's just, I got you to be kind of part of the household. So I think that just gives me a different perspective about how I do things, why I do them the way that I do.
That kind of, to me, like, again, for me personally, exactly highlights why I feel that way and why I feel the way that I do here, walking through neighborhoods here in America, working with some of the people that I worked with, is that this dynamic does not exist everywhere in the world. This dynamic is different in other places in the world. And being aware of that trap of the dynamic of a true power imbalance is really what it comes down to, of being aware of the potential abuse of power. And if you're not aware of the potential to fall into that dynamic, because here culturally it's everywhere, right? People out walking their dogs, forcing a heel, not letting them sniff, doing these things that are just seem like really controlling. And I just think that unless you're aware of that trap, you can fall into it. And so I'm just trying to, I worry that I came across critical when it's not a criticism, it's an observation. And I don't think anybody has done anything wrong. And it's not speaking to everybody for sure, because you definitely don't have that in your household. And I really hope that I don't in my household. I really look at my relationship with my dog as I want to be a steward and not a warden. But
I think it's systematic. It's going back to, and I hate to take a hard turn with this, but it's like when you say, hey, maybe that was racist, or this racist comment. People immediately take this as an attack on themselves. But I'm like, no, you have to understand that this is systematic. This is something that was embedded in a population to be like, no, this is how life is supposed to be lived when it's not. Yes. On my podcast with Denise, I talked about how my main purpose is to decolonize dog, right? Because when we look at the history of dog training, it has come from military German, like, hey, oppressive systems.
Yes.
And then it swung the completely opposite way that was completely all positive or completely force free. And so I'm like, it's still this thing that comes from a very human centric perspective rather than either a community perspective or more a, hey, let's empathize with dogs and see how their needs can be met as a part of what we're doing with them every day. It was just more about that control.
Yes.
And a lot of the way that I talk to my clients is, listen, a lot of my training style was developed because when I was a dog walker, I was out walking dogs when I would see people and what they would expect out of their dogs, people's routines. I'm like, I see so many people getting frustrated with their dogs when they're not giving them communication. And it's because you have to do what I say because I say so. And that to me, it's a very Western world mentality. It's all because of the patriarchy. It's all because of supremacist culture, right? And so I think for me to come into a session and say, we're going to do things differently. Like you think that we walk out and then we just walk and then we just correct the dog for doing stuff. I'm even changing the way that you perceive your walks. We were talking about this earlier. And so we're going to walk out and we're just going to hang out with our dog. And we're just going to do little games. Or we're just going to do this. So I'm like completely rewiring how people perceive as life with their dog should be, and more, hey, no, this is what it naturally needs to be, not what the system tells us that it should be. And I think it's important for us to be critics of that, because we are not going to get to the foundation of the problems within the industry if we don't talk about that stuff.
I'm so grateful to have you, and that like you are so ready to show up and talk about the things that some people don't want to talk about, have the hard conversations, because this is something that I've been thinking and feeling and trying to find the words to talk about for probably years now. And I've just started trying, and I'm not getting it right every time. And so having people to talk this through, and the way that you framed it as like it's part of the system, that's what I've been trying to get at. So thank you for putting that into words for me. It is. I keep referencing it as this cultural, as I guess that's what I've been looking for. But what I've been calling it is a need for a cultural shift, because I didn't have the language for it. So I've been saying that what we need is a cultural mindset shift, because social media has done its own damage. But even before that, with traditional media and television, and when like the modern pet dog started to get this reputation of being honestly nothing short of robotic, and that has damaged our country's dog culture in a way that I don't think is irreparable, but it is deep. It is so deep.
It's funny because Jerry and I actually bonded over this, because I was like, hey, I'm having these feelings, right? And it wasn't conversations that I told you, like the company that I was working for was predominantly white. And so there was just certain things that I would bring up that it was just, and I was one of two people of color in that. And me and her felt the same way. But as soon as I started bringing some of these conversations to the table with the rest, they were, oh, no, because it's like that initial shame, defend whiteness, defend the system, that it's so ingrained in it. Like, I'm not saying there was malice in that, but there is an indoctrination of people to defend that system, right? Even though it's harming us, but it's the way that it's been portrayed through media. It's been the way that it's just been built on this.
The system is designed and is effective at benefiting someone, a certain group. So it's not for no reason to someone, even though it's harming to some pockets. There will be, from that damage, somebody's benefiting from that.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I thought it was disgusting. Like the other day, an ad popped up of like the most expensive dog to ever sell, and I'm just like, this what? And me and Jerry were talking about, there was a variety of dogs that existed in this continent before colonization. And the way that indigenous people lived alongside animals was very different than when these breeds from the West started getting imported here. But then that became, this is how you live with animals, right? And I think that there was this one story, and I really need to look up what the name of this breed was, but there was this dog that would naturally just have wool. And so a lot of indigenous people this dog was sacred to this particular group of natives. And they were one of those dogs that was incredibly protected when colonizers came here, because they wanted to kill like this breed of dog off, because it was a resource to the natives. And so it became that dog that people would literally hide underground, or like they became sacred. We're like, no, we need to protect this resource, right? And I think that alone, that history tells us the mentality of the West towards animals, right? Like they are a means to an end. They are a tool of oppression. They are a tool to help me get the job that I need, or to hunt, or to do all these things. They're a tool that expresses my wealth. So I think that we need to face head on with the history that this was, and understand that, listen, like it's not too late for us to say this is a problem and completely pivot, because until we do that, things are not going to change. Like the shelter crisis is not going to get better until we address these very deeply rooted problems that just come with the system and the way that people have been taught to live alongside animals.
So we need two things then. We need the awareness, but that's what we're doing right now. Like we're trying to talk about this. And then we need a willingness to change, which I hope that things swing in a way that more are willing to change than not, because sometimes it doesn't feel that way. But I have hope that it will swing that way, that we will have more willing to change than not.
Yeah, and I think that hope alone is revolutionary, right? Like having hope alone is an active way to touch it to the system, right? But I do see the difference. Like even just the fact that you and I can have this conversation, and that whatever this goes and whoever listens to it, I think the most important part is one, listening to understand, not to argue, But then to me, I see the difference in the communities that I am setting up where I'm saying, hey, like this is different, right? And
Yeah.
I think along with people wanting to make that shift also needs to come the accessibility to make that shift, right? Something as small as, hey, I want you to train this way, or I want you to see life this way, but the way that I'm telling you to do things has to still mesh with the things that you're doing every day to make sure that it is attainable. It needs to be affordable. So I have, and we can talk about this later, I have a bunch of community programs that I am seeing that shift, and I am seeing those conversations get started. And even if it's just right now a little dip that's creating a ripple, at least those conversations are happening.
Yeah. And we have to keep having them. So you and Jerry and I will have to carve out time for the three of us to have a little round table about this, because I think it'll be, that'll be a good one.
I would love that.
We're going to need 2 hours for something like that.
Yes.
Okay. So Daphne, I would like to know, is there anything else that you want the people out there to know about you, the things you do, your work, your community programs, all of that? Let's talk about those.
Yeah, I'm a big advocate for community. That has been something that is just deeply embedded in my core since I got here. I love volunteering. I love doing things to help the people around me. First resource, so Dogs Anonymous is a program that you and I have worked on together along with a couple of other amazing people. And so that is essentially a group that provides emotional support, but also behavioral support to anybody that's struggling with their dog, or simply just needs someone to talk to. Someone that's, hey, I just had a terrible week with my dog and I just need to vent about it. We are the community to do that. We offer free weekly meetings, different kinds of resources, a bunch of free resources on our website. I also have a community club, which I hope inspires other people to open up their own community clubs. Because any club that I was really a part of that wasn't just my big sport club, I just felt I just didn't really mesh. We talked a little bit about why, but it's essentially a community club that's a sliding scale. So you can pay whatever you can, anything from $1 up. We meet every Monday from 7 to 10 p.m. in Chicago. And we all just essentially work together to say, hey, let's work together on helping each other's issues, helping dogs build trust around other dogs. And it's something that I feel like has created so much connection within the members that people will then text each other and be like, hey, you want to go meet up and go do this thing over here? So I think it's actually linking up people that want to do things with their dogs. That's not just, let's just go shove them in a dog park and just see what happens.
Yeah.
And I have heard a couple of friends that have been like, hey, you're close, a little far from me, but I've started meeting up with a couple of my friends and we go on walks together. So
I love that.
That to me is the most important thing. And then me and a couple of friends are trying to bring back ring sports, specifically French ring, to the Midwest. Right now we train out in Indiana, and so we just started our own club. It's called Kaiju Dog Sports. Kaiju just means monster for anybody that might be curious. And so we just want to create a little bit more awareness on particularly ring sports. I know PSA is a big sport right now that's blowing up all over the US, but we just want to bring something that's a little bit different. And we want to encourage people that have dogs that have a little bit more of a toy drive to learn how to tug with their dogs. So it's not just come and do some bite work. It's, hey, come learn how to play with a dog that requires that level of fulfillment. And unfortunately, it's a lot of community stuff. It's not necessarily that I'm making all this money, but it's incredibly just rewarding for me. And if it weren't for capitalism, I would literally do all this stuff for free.
I get that. And I'm so just grateful that you are out there, and that I know that there are others out there like you that are focused on this, that are actively putting their creative energy into, okay, how can I meet the needs of my community? What does that look like? Where can I make the most impact right here, right now, with the people that need it the most and the people that maybe don't have access to the resources that they're being told are what they need?
Yeah, exactly. And it's just, as soon as you start supporting community, the community will support you. That is just, there's something that I think that, especially in the next couple of years, we're really going to have to dive into community, because that is the only way that we're going to make it together. I think that the system thrives in us thinking that we need to be this hyper individual. And no, I think that humans are made for community and connection. And so I think that if we can be there to support each other, then we don't need anything else.
Jerry quotes a African proverb frequently of, if you want to go fast, go alone, but if you want to go far, go together. And that to me is just really been very impactful over the last few years. And to be able to look around and feel like we do have a really strong group of people that are all fighting the same fight, it makes it a hell of a lot easier to wake up every day and do it all over again.
Seriously, because it's important. And I think that sometimes especially with social media, we get thrown so much noise that makes us feel overwhelmed. That makes us feel like, man, am I really making a difference? But I think that there is a lot of people that are out there putting in so much work that they don't have time to post it all on social media because they're just like, hey, I'm just out here playing. I don't have to document everything that I do because it's not what this is about. And I think that there are more people doing good things than there are bad people doing bad things. It's just what gets shown to us, you know?
I agree completely. You can connect with Daphne on Instagram at A Dog Trainer Life, and you can find more information and a link to her work in the show notes. Thanks for joining us in the world of Dog Training Bytes, where every challenge brings a lesson worth sinking our teeth into. See you next time. Dog Training Bytes was created, produced, and edited by Madison Simpson. You can connect with me on Instagram at Dog Training Bytes, that's BYTES, and at Freed by Training. For information on today's guest and resources for help with your dog or dog training education, visit www.dogtrainingbytes.stream. Looking for more? Listen to my other show, Unpacked, a clinical dog training podcast co-hosted by Sailor Jerry the Dog Trainer and produced by Straight Up Dog Talk, LLC.